Bueno, bienvenidos, bienvenidas, bienvenidos a todos y a todas y a todos. Espero que estén muy bien. Estamos aquí nuevamente en otra sesión más de Developer Circles, esta vez en octubre, así que unofficially podemos decir que este es el Halloween edition, aunque con la pandemia no se puede hacer mucho en Halloween. So, espero que estén bien, que sus familias estén bien de salud. Estoy aquí unido como siempre por los grandes talentos aquí de Coco House, Marcel Morales.
Hola.
Ochi y Mariangi Rosa. Así que estamos aquí en Corillo, súper emocionados de estar con ustedes hoy. Vamos a estar hablando de básicamente dos temas principalmente. El primero va a ser por Jennifer Hopp, que va a estar hablando sobre la inversión de capital, un tema súper importante y cuándo es ese momento correcto de raise capital. Importante, este evento va a ser en inglés, lo comenzamos en español porque para pues darle la bienvenida a ustedes que están aquí llegando, pero vamos a traducir ahora a inglés para que todos nuestros panelistas y todos nuestros speakers puedan entonces también experimentar el evento. So, welcome everyone. Today we'll be speaking about two main topics. The first one is raising capital with Jennifer Hopp. We'll be starting that in 2 to 1 minute. And then after Jennifer, Pedro Cruz, the great talented Pedro Cruz from VeoVeo Studios, will be speaking about virtual reality experiences. So we're very excited to have you all here and have you all being here in the stream. I want to start off before starting to tell you a little bit about what we're doing at Developer Circles here in San Juan and the work we've been doing since a few months and a few years back. So Developer Circles is an initiative by Facebook, which we represent here in Puerto Rico. And basically our mission is to educate and build a community of technological innovators in the island here through all the tools that Facebook has and all the tools that we have as a community here in the island to offer you these materials and these talks to facilitate that innovation process through technology. So we're very excited to have you here. I don't know if anybody of my great colleagues here have something to add to that.
I have a political caravan that's like by my apartment being super loud. So I have a very short window. Welcome everyone. And thank you, Jennifer and Pedro, for accepting our invitation to come talk. I'm very excited about this. And yeah, if you see that I'm not reaching out on mute, it's because some politician speaker is like really loud over here.
Such is life, such is life. All right. Well, with that said, I believe we're good to go then. We're a little bit ahead of time. So we'll be bringing up Jennifer Hopp, which is the managing partner at ATO Ventures. So let me bring her up right here. Hello, Jennifer.
Hola.
Hey.
All right. Well, Jennifer, I'll be putting Jennifer now at full screen. Her talk is when is the right time to raise venture capital and how should I go about it? So Jennifer obviously has a lot of experience in the venture capital space. She has a local venture capital here firm called ATO Ventures. So we're very excited to have her talk today about how to raise capital and how to do this as entrepreneurs and innovators. So I'll be putting Jennifer here on the screen and take it away.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys inviting me to be here this evening, and hopefully something that I say is helpful and resonates with the group that is listening. So when I started thinking about the best way to approach this evening, I obviously asked Marcel, who's going to be in the audience? And so he gave me an idea of the type of people that are coming and the developers that are in, and it sounds like everybody is a little bit all over the board in terms of some people already have a startup and others just have an idea that they want to pursue. And so what I thought I'd do is kind of take it from both of those angles and the steps that you need to think about when you're going to go raise venture capital. But before I dive in, it's always good to have a frame of reference so that you know the lens through which the person who is talking is speaking. So I'll give you a little bit about my background. I do have a lot of experience in investing and entrepreneurship, but I have a tiny bit of experience in development as well. So you can understand that I've sat a little bit on the other side of the table, not a developer by any manner of means, but I do have a little bit of experience. So just stepping back through my background a little bit. So I did an undergraduate program. I split my time between UC Berkeley and Oxford and did my undergraduate degrees are in economics and Japanese. So nothing to do with development yet. Then I spent 10 years as a litigation consultant. And most of the time I was doing commercial damages, expert witness testimony for large software companies. So this is where I first started learning about coding and technology because my clients were people like Microsoft and Sun. And so, for example, in an intellectual property case, there would be a lawsuit saying, okay, this kernel of code is something that you stole. And it would be my job to prove it was or wasn't stolen and the value of that code. So I ended up having to start learning how to look at and understand how software was developed. So that was my first exposure. So even though I was on the business side and the finance side, I started having to understand what was going on in the coding world to do my job. And then after a while, I started actually building my own databases of information and knowledge. So I would have the database, and then I would start doing my own modeling. So then it grew from there. So then I was doing back-end database scripting. So I started learning. I first was on, some of you are going to wonder what the heck I'm talking about, but it was like net access, and then net. And then after that, then I went into MySQL. So I did that all for about 10 years and then went back to business school. And when I went back to UC Berkeley, they had an amazing program there with the MBA program where you could do a joint program with the business school and the engineering school. So I did an MBA, but I have a certificate in management of technology. So I was able to take classes in the computer science school. And then I had a great idea, right? Builders, I'm a builder. So I had this brilliant idea for a new software company that I wanted to start. But I didn't have a technical co-founder, so I decided to build it myself. So what this entailed was the back end, right? So I did the database, I could write the algorithms, and I could teach myself HTML and CSS, which was pretty simple. We didn't have WYSIWYGs back then. This was a long time ago, people, like 25 years ago. It was a long time ago, 20 years ago. Okay, wait, no, this one was 15 years ago. All right, so not that long ago, but we didn't have like the WYSIWYGs where you could just build websites like you can today. So I taught myself some HTML, CSS, some JavaScript, and sort of built the sort of a really ugly front end. And then I had the database stuff, which I was cool on, but I couldn't figure out how to do the scripting layer. So then I finally found a technical co-founder who could do the PHP and implement the algorithms that I had written. So or I shouldn't say I couldn't figure it out. I wasn't willing to take the time to figure it out. So that's my background. And what's important about that is for the business people that are watching, we always want to hire someone else as the CTO, which is, you should do. You should never do the coding yourself unless you absolutely have to, when you've got technical people that can do it much better. But it is good to understand the language. I'm sure many of you that are who are developers watching, it's very frustrating when you can't communicate well with your business partner. Because they just have no clue what you're saying. So as a business person, it makes a lot of sense to at least learn some development. You don't have to know how to develop, but understand kind of what's going on, and vice versa. For the developers, I would always suggest you go read, the 4-hour MBA or something, just so you have the language on the business side, and that really helps your teams gel. And we'll get into why that's important later. So in any case, I did 2 years of R&D on a startup right out of business school, and then we launched it. It was live for 5 years, and then I sold it in 2016 because I wanted to go into venture capital full time. For the end of that, I was doing a lot of angel investing and advising to startups, and I just knew I really wanted to do venture capital full time. And so I decided to start a venture capital fund, but not until after I came here. So I came here in 2016 because I was invited down by Parallel 18 to work with the startups in Gen 1. At the time, I was just an angel investor, and I just thought that they were doing such an amazing job and then liked what they were doing. So I came back for Gen 2. Eventually, I just kind of fell in love with the island and decided to move. And that's when I decided, okay, if I'm going to be here, I have to do something to contribute. And since I've had 26 years of experience in Silicon Valley, raising capital for startups. My software company, we raised venture capital. I'd also been on the other side of the table, both as a limited partner, someone who invests in venture capital companies, a venture partner, someone who works at a venture capital fund, and now as an angel. So I was like, okay, I'll start a venture capital fund. At the time, we didn't have any on the island. So I've been doing that. We kicked it off last year, and then we're still raising, but we're also deploying right now. So we're actually investing in companies while we're finishing up the raise, and then soon we'll go into fund 2. So that's ATO Ventures, which they introduced, and I think it's across the bottom. ATO stands for Against the Odds, but it's very fitting for us here in Puerto Rico. We often succeed against the odds, and that's what we're all about at ATO Ventures. So that's kind of the background, and I think it's important. So I'm sorry to have taken so long, but now you can understand sort of the frame of reference of why I say what I do. It's usually coming from experience and not necessarily the same things that you'll hear other venture capitalists say, nor what you'll read in books. And it's because I've been through this process as an operator in a tech startup, which is not always the case when you're dealing with venture capitalists. So as I said at the very beginning, I think there's kind of two groups of people in the audience, and that is the group of people who have an idea that they want to develop or they're starting to develop, and then the group of people who are already working on a product that's launched and has users. And I'm sure there's a wide range in between there. But if you're thinking about an idea or you're starting to tinker, the biggest challenge that we have as builders is that we like to build. And we start with the kind of, I wonder if I can solve this XYZ problem. And before you know it, we're long since solved the problem and are now deep into adding bells and whistles and features and thinking about the UI. And we just keep going and kind of go down our own rabbit hole of building this amazing product. But we've never stopped to ask, is anyone going to buy this thing? And that's where market validation comes in. And I learned this the hard way because I launched my software company after 2 years of development and nobody bought the product. So after that, I said never again. And that's what ATO Ventures is all based on. Our whole model is doing market validation testing before starting. So it's fine to create for creation's sake, right? So if you're just like to build stuff, that's fine. But if you're counting on turning it into a business and actually making money from it, you really must make sure that there is a market before you spend the time doing that. So you can, I'm just trying to think of the best way to describe these steps too. But making sure there's a market is about making sure that you can get people to sell it, to buy it, not just say that they'll buy it. So one example would be to put a prototype of your product in front of someone. It doesn't even have to be fully built. It could just be the front end. It could even just be sketches. But you're getting it in front of your customers and seeing if they'd be willing to pre-buy it, right? So this is kind of what we think about with market validation testing. If you can't get people to buy it, then it's probably not a market, or you're doing a terrible job marketing, which is possible, in which case I would highly suggest that if you don't have business and sales and marketing experience, that you team up with someone who does and can help you with this market validation process. But this is before anything. Before you think about asking an investor for money, you have to really validate that market. And I know developers get frustrated a lot of times, and of course this varies too. So I should take a step back and say, this is simpler for consumer products. It's harder if you're doing a hardware product or something that requires FDA clearance. Those are longer time horizons. But even still, we did a market validation project for a medical device that was going into FDA clearance before we invested in it. So it's still possible. But the process is a little bit different. But the first thing you want to do before you even spend time building something is to make sure there's a market. See if you can pre-sell it. If you can't pre-sell it, you've got to figure out why is this not a burning need for people that they want to buy it. And then once you do find the right market willing to buy it, the next step is to bring a business person onto the team. If you haven't done so already, then you can go ahead and finish out building it. While you're building it, that's when you can continue doing the pre-sales of your product or service. And then you can also start fundraising at that point too, because once you have a validated market, you have proof that there's product market fit, you've got some pre-sales, and even if you don't have a lot of users at that point, you've already proven that there is a market. You can then take that to a venture capitalist like me. And then you launch and deliver your pre-sales and keep growing. So that's what you need your money for. So why do you need funding? At that point, it's really expensive to go to market if you're going to go to market fast, which I would not do until you've proven it out, right? So do all your testing first and then go to market. So those are kind of the steps. Make sure you can build it. So tinker away. But as soon as you're sure you can build it, stop. Don't spend any more time on it until you're sure there's a market. Then do your validation through the market testing and get a business person on board, build it out, continue pre-selling, go for funding so that you can go to market, then launch and grow. Okay, so those are kind of the quick steps. I'm going to go to how you approach an investor in a moment. So what if you've already launched? So if you've already launched, it kind of depends on if you were able to successfully do a revenue model, and lots of users is not a revenue model. And so people also say, we don't have anyone paying for it, but we have lots of users. That doesn't count. You've got to figure out who's going to pay for this in order for it to be viable, right? So if it is the case that you're counting on things like advertising, then you've got to understand how many millions of people you need for advertising to be a viable revenue model, and then back that in. So I would say if you've already launched, you don't have revenue yet, but you do have users, I would still say stop and figure out how you're going to validate your market. Identify revenue models and test the heck out of them until you find one where you've got a scalable, reachable market. And you can't really go to, unless you've got just a crazy scale on the users, it's really hard to raise capital without having identified that revenue model. And you'll hear all kinds of things. There are angels in particular who will back you because they like you. There are some VCs that will always say, we back the entrepreneur, not the idea. But you still have to have something going in the direction of revenue, because our whole job is obviously to make money. That's like what we have to do. People may not like it, but that's what we have to do. Otherwise, we won't have a job. So what do you do once you have pre-sales? How do you raise venture capital? And so here are a few tips. I'm looking at the time to see how much time I have. I know we didn't start at the exact time, but it looks like I have quite a bit of time. Okay, so some tips, and there are a lot of tips. I'll just pause for a moment. You can go to my Instagram, and it's at hop.vc, my last name .venturecapitalvc, so hop.vc on Instagram. And I post a lot of do's and don'ts for fundraising on the wall. I'm starting to put some of those at ATO Ventures too. So on hop.vc on Instagram, you'll find lots of tips about work-life. I actually don't like this term, work-life balance, but about making sure that you're having an efficient business and an efficient life, right? So I have this motto I call hustle, don't grind. And it's all about, yes, you're hustling, but as soon as it feels like a grind, like it's painful, you're doing something wrong. So I talk a lot about everything from mindfulness and fitness and diet and workouts and how to maintain your time and that kind of thing on hop.vc. ATO Ventures on Instagram is more about fundraising tips for that kind of thing, business ideas. It's data, statistics, more businessy stuff. So you could follow those two areas and take note of that, because the one thing I'm going to tell you is to pay attention to where investors want you to connect with them, and don't deviate from what they tell you, because they will tell you how to reach them. And for me, it's Instagram. So the first thing you need to do if you're thinking about raising venture capital now or any time in the future, and this goes to any investment, not just venture capital, it could even be debt, venture capital, revenue share, joint venture, anything like that. And that is to build your relationships way early, like way before you ever think you need them. At least a year, I know it sounds crazy, at least a year, preferably at least 2, before you ever plan to pitch that person. Really start to identify who you think one day you might want to do business with. Follow them on social, engage with their content, send them helpful information. Oh, I saw that you are invested in this company, and I also saw this competitor was launching in XYZ. You might want to know about it. That's helpful stuff, right? So start helping the investors now, and it just makes them know who you are, and it builds that level of trust. This is really important now because you can't meet face to face, and it takes a lot longer to build rapport online. Even though you can see each other and people are getting used to Zoom, it's just still different than sitting down over coffee or lunch with someone, which isn't, it's starting to happen a little bit more, but it's just not the same. And people are also now happy to meet with you on Zoom. And so I would say count on doing more meetings by Zoom, but also count on it taking more meetings to build that trust. And so start early. And get involved. If you can go to events, obviously meet them there. Respectfully, don't pitch people at events. I have some crazy stories about people actually pitching me in an elevator. The elevator pitch is just a metaphor. Don't actually do it. Or at the gym or in the restroom, or it's times when you're just not thinking about companies. So do be respectful when you see someone you want to pitch and just say, hey, I'd love to talk to you at another time. Don't beat around the bush. Tell them exactly why you want to meet with them. They're going to know anyway. And that kind of goes on to the second point. If you must pitch now, you really can't wait until you build a relationship for a year or two. Then you need to find a way to get a warm introduction and then be honest about why you want to talk with them. So see if you have a connection. If you don't have a connection and you really have to go in cold, then make sure you've read everything you can about that individual and their firm. Make sure you're a fit for the types of things that they're investing in. A lot of times what people don't understand is that as investors, especially venture capitalists, we're dealing with an SEC security, right? So we have these long documents that are agreements with our investors as to what we're going to invest in. And so it's a really strict mandate. And as much as they might love you or your idea and think, yes, it's going to be a gazillion-dollar deal, they can't do it. They absolutely can't go outside their purview of what they have legally set up. And it's so rare that they can get permission to go outside that it's really, really important that you take the time to look and make sure that you're a potential fit. And if you're not sure for some reason, it's okay to say, hey, I'm not sure if this is a fit for you. This is what we do. If it is something that's a fit for you, I'd love to have a few minutes to talk to you about it. And they may send you information about how to get in front of them, which is what we do. We actually send everyone to our website at atoventures.com. And there's a big submit button. And the reason we do that is just because my inbox is a nightmare, for one. And if you send me an email, I will not see it. And I've had this happen where I will tell people how to submit, how to get in front of me, how to get a meeting, and they still want to send me their deck and say, but just take a quick look. And I promise you that will never be faster for me. Now, for some people, it will be. And a lot of times people on their LinkedIn will tell you how best to interact with them. I tell people right on my LinkedIn, if you want to talk to me, and it's on my website too, both ATO Ventures and hop.vc. If you want to talk to me, go to Instagram. I'm much faster on instant message on Instagram than any other platform. And if you want me to look at your deck, then hit that big submit button. It only takes a minute, and that's the fastest way. So those are the ways to get in touch with me. Other people will say use Twitter. Other people will say connect on LinkedIn. So just really follow what they say and don't deviate from that. One note on persistence. So you're going to hear different people say different things. A lot of entrepreneurs, speakers will tell you, be persistent, be persistent. Don't take no for an answer. And I can tell you this is partially true and mostly wrong. So it's okay I actually like it when entrepreneurs reach out to me and say, if I haven't replied and they say something like, hey, I'm just bringing this to the top of your inbox. I'm sure you're busy. Don't, no pressure, just trying to get it to the top. And I'm usually very happy that they've done that because, like I've said, if I've asked you to email me, which is usually when they do that, and I still don't reply, it's because it's immediately buried. I get hundreds of emails a day, and every investor is the same way. And so if you send it, once or twice again, and then I still don't reply, then I would say don't keep doing that. Choose something else, right? Go to LinkedIn, go to Instagram, do something else. Because if I'm not replying or the investor's not replying, the chances are there's a reason. He's either going to junk or their inbox is a nightmare or something. So politely follow up a couple of times and then choose another way if that's still not working. If the next tip is if they say they're not interested, listen to them. Like, don't push. I've had some who insist that you look again, or they're upset. They think you didn't spend enough time with it, or you didn't understand it. And the truth is, a lot of times it's like what I said before. It just simply does not fit into what they're doing. And so just listen to them. Wait a couple of months. Maybe send them an update. Not a did you change your mind, but more of like, oh, here's our newsletter. I really appreciated your feedback, so I thought you might be interested in staying up to date on what we're doing. And that's a good thing, because even if you're not a fit for the investor that you're talking to, you do want to stay top of their mind, because we have huge networks. And while we don't necessarily keep track of what every VC in our network is doing, I know hundreds of VCs. And at some point, I might be talking to one and go, oh, that's right, you do fintech. You know what, I talked to this fintech company and they're obviously not a fit for me, but I forgot that you do fintech. Let me introduce you. So you do want to stay top of their mind, and nobody's going to get upset if you send them a newsletter. They may or may not read it, but your name will be on their mind, right? It'll be in their subconscious. They'll see it every single time. I've got startups that send me their newsletters. I never am going to invest in them. They just simply aren't a fit, but I can tell you the name of the company and I know what they're doing. So if something does come along, I will remember it. So no, I've just created a lot of junk mail for myself. but that's actually a good way to keep keep relationships going and being helpful. Always continue to be helpful. You never know when an investor is going to be able to help introduce you to somebody else. The other thing is, if you say you're going to send something, do it. So if you talk to them and you say, hey, I'll send you my deck, make sure you do, because even if you think, they're never going to look at it, doesn't matter. If you say you're going to do it, definitely do it. So then once you get the meeting, the next tip is send over a high-level deck. They may or may not read it, but just give them something that they can glance through ahead of the meeting. I know I always try to, at least 15 minutes before the meeting, I take a look at who I'm meeting with, and I go through the deck very quickly and find that initial meeting is not really a pitch. Unless they tell you they want you to pitch to you, that first meeting with an investor is a get to know you session. It's who are you? How'd you come up with this idea? What's your background? Why are you pursuing it? What stage are you in? It's just really get to know you and understand the business. They should walk away with that first meeting truly understanding what your product does and who you are. And then if they're interested, you can go further, and then there might be a more formal pitch where you're talking about the financials. Unless they tell you otherwise, of course. If they say you're going to pitch this thing to me on meeting one, be prepared to do so. But typically, the first one is just a conversation. It might be kind of a coffee chat type of situation, or in this case, a Zoom chat. Demos are always good if you have a demo, or if you have even just the front end schematic. Again, the idea is the investor must understand your product, right? So I've been in situations where I've looked at decks, and by the time I get to the end, I still have no clue what this thing does. And so it's really important that they can describe what your product does and for whom and why it's important and valuable. So then the last things would just be to follow up and be patient. You can always continue to politely follow up, but once you've done your part, you have to be patient, and it's hard sometimes because you could wait a couple of weeks, but the truth is the investors are going through hundreds of deals over and over. And in the meantime, our biggest job is raising capital ourselves, right? So we have to raise the money that we're going to invest into you. And so we have a lot of time splitting that we're doing as well. Just like when you want to build rather than raise capital, we'd rather be investing in you than raising capital, but we have to split our time. So in any regard, I think that my time is up, and that was actually the last thing I wanted to say. I don't know if there were any questions. I think we have like 2 or 3 minutes for questions, if there are any. I'm looking at the chat, but it's all in Spanish. I'm learning Spanish, guys, so don't say anything bad about me. I can understand it a little bit. I can't hear you. Oh, okay.
Great job, Jennifer. Thank you for that talk. It was really, really good. I was even myself taking some notes here while you were speaking. There was really, really valuable information you gave out there. So like Jennifer said, if you have any questions, now is the time to ask. Any questions related to venture capital, how to raise capital inside your company and all this, especially in the startup where Jennifer has been focused on for most of her professional life, that would be great. So feel free to ask any questions. Besides that, I did want to ask something to you, Jennifer, directly. And so I'll be the first question then, which is, do you have an example of a textbook example of a company doing a very good job at raising capital?
Oh my gosh,
in the last few years?
There's so many. Like, people are raising money left and right. And I think I'm very much biased, as you guys know, because you just heard me talk about it. And if you've looked at my website, you'll know I'm very biased toward making sure there's a market before building. And this is, like I said, the hardest thing for us as builders. As builders, all we want to do is build. We don't want to stop and see if there's a market. That's the number one most important thing. So the people that have done the best job are yes, there are the stories where they got lucky. They built something and it just flew off the shelves, right? But most of the time that doesn't happen. And so the ones that are able to successfully raise are the ones that are able to show that there definitely is a market and have evidence for that before they talk to the investor.
Beautiful. So does any company come to your mind? I don't know if you want to make the public endorsement.
I can publicly endorse the ones that I'm in. So, but that, yeah. So as venture capitalists, we usually don't talk about anything that we're not in because it's a go.
Okay. Got it. Great. All right. Well, thank you for answering that, Jennifer. Do you have any questions, Marianne?
Yes, I do. You mentioned that, right, it takes a long time to get to know the investor, and you know, a year or maybe two. In these casual encounters, when you do start talking about business, what are the numbers that you need to know out of the top of your head when you're not pitching? Like, what are those key, I don't know, is it churn rate? Is it like revenue? What are the key things that, like, when someone puts you on the spot and asks you, like, you need to answer, otherwise, like, you already did, like, strike one?
All of them. You should know all the numbers, and you should know them at a macro level and at a micro level, meaning you should have the unit economics, like how much does a single unit cost to make? What's your customer acquisition cost? What's your retention rate? What do you think it's going to be in 5 years? What do you, like, all the numbers that you would possibly put on a deck, you should be living and breathing them every day anyway. But yeah, you never know what's going to come out of someone's mouth. And if you don't know, it's not good.
Got it. Okay, so great question, Mananji, by the way. We do have one comment. We're at 6:31, so I want to be respectful of Pedro's time. But we have one quick comment, which I think we can ask. And it is, hi, Jennifer, one question. How many startups in Puerto Rico has your company invested up to now?
Yeah, so it's different for me as an angel versus the company. So I've done a handful as an angel. So the company's only made one investment so far. And the way the model works is we invest here and abroad as long as they're willing to come here. So the first investment that we did, because again, we're still raising. So we're in the process of doing our second investment. This first fund is very small. It's only $3 million. It's a proof of concept fund. And so we'll only make 5 investments out of this one. So the first one is a product called Isono Health. It's a medical device company that started in Silicon Valley, but now they are coming here. Both to do their clinical studies. So we are working with the cancer center here, and then they'll be manufacturing here as well. So we're bringing technologies here, then they will hire out here. So one that didn't start here, but it will be here, and it's one of one. But our model is, if they're not here, they have to come here within a year.
Wonderful. All right. So, Jennifer, thank you for your time. It's been truly an honor to have you here speak and share all the knowledge you have because of all your years of experience. Down below, you have the Jennifer Hopp social media and ATO Ventures social media. So feel free to follow her, visit her website, and maybe you can submit your startup so that she can invest on you and you can grow your business. So yeah, thank you very much, Jennifer. It's been truly an honor.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
All right, so now it's time for our second speaker of the day, which is Pedro Cruz. He is co-founder of VeoVeo Studios, and he's going to show us a little bit about virtual reality and how to create these experiences. So, Pedro, it's an honor, as always, to have you here. Let's give a warm virtual round of applause to Pedro.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Fabian, Mariandy, and Ochi for the invitation. So happy that I can come back again to the Facebook developer circles. Last time I talked about Spark and about augmented reality. Today we're going to shift gears and talk about virtual reality. So I'm really excited.
All right, awesome. So take it away. I'll share here your banner below and take it away, Pedro.
All right, awesome. So hi everyone, my name is Pedro Cruz. Let me just share my screen here. Okay, so I'm going to assume that you can see my screen. Basically, I'm going to be talking about my experience working with VR for over 6 years. It's been crazy how long I've been in this industry, even though it's not even here yet. So I'm going to explain like how I got started into the ecosystem, what contributions I've done to the community here in Puerto Rico, and where I think we're going to go into the future, as well as a few tips and tricks about designing VR experiences. Just in case, if you want to connect with me, you can go to my website, pedrocruz.io, and then that has all my social media links. So like I said, I'm the co-founder of VeoVeo Studios. I also have a day job at IBM working in artificial intelligence. I'm an educator, and I've been the past 6 years focusing my learning skills in virtual and augmented reality, but as well as applying concepts like artificial intelligence into the design of these experiences, interacting with IoT devices through virtual and augmented reality, as well as designing robots that can do telepresence. So I've also been in multiple communities, Storico, Puerto Rico, where we were able to create the first virtual reality cinema with 360 video here in Puerto Rico in the Science Trust, as well as with Link, Fabian. We've started the first blockchain community back then, and now it has evolved into an educational platform. So really happy to be here, and let me get started. VR has had a pivotal moment in 2012. Before then, virtual reality actually was invented in the 60s, but it wasn't until the mobile revolution, until iPhones and Androids came about, that VR was accessible to people and it was technologically feasible. So this company, founded by a 19-year-old called Palmer Luckey, he raised over $2 million in his Kickstarter. The goal was 250 grand to make the headset and ecosystem. 2 years later, after that Kickstarter, Facebook acquires the company for $2 billion. So back then in 2012, I just graduated high school, and I was looking what technologies I could learn to impact in the future. So after that headset launched, Google said, hey, we can do virtual reality with your phone. They launched this concept called Google Cardboard. I was fascinated because I did not have the money to buy a VR headset. The Oculus Rift and the Oculus DK2, it costed like a few $100s plus the gaming rig. So I decided to go the cardboard route. Instead of buying cardboard, even back then I didn't even have enough money in college to buy the cardboard online, I decided to make my own. And this is how it looked like. My mom is still a little bit mad when she sees this because I broke her binoculars to use them as lenses for my experiment. Basically, I took a cardboard box from my cell phone. It was a big phablet device, like a 6.5 inch screen. And I took the binoculars. And as you can see here, I actually used nails to attach the cardboard. I didn't even have duct tape, but that gave me my first virtual reality experience and headset that I created. So fast forward to a few months later, I was able to afford the headset. That was me back then, 2014, without a beard, still in college, working on VR, basically. So that's where my first headset where I got started. And I think Jennifer made excellent points about inventing things and starting companies. This was my first. So after I created a concept, right, the actual cardboard, I said, what software can you use? What are the low-hanging fruit? If VR is going to become a big thing, what can we create that can gain rapid adoption? Back then, I thought it was real estate. So I'm going to show you my original pitch, my original marketing video that I used. So this actually, I even applied to Parallel 18 Generation 1 with this project. So it really shows like how much you can do in throughout the years, right? If you focus. However, I'm gonna say that I was trying to solve something that had no market. So I think Jennifer is right that you should focus on falling in love with the problems and trying to build the relationship. So this was the invention that I created. It basically was a software platform to see real estate. However, I discovered that realtors weren't interested in this platform. They didn't want to give cardboards to their employees and to their customers as well. So this did not end up working out. I learned a ton. I learned how to program VR experiences. But fast forward, and I even though that project wasn't successful, I had the opportunity to do consulting. I've worked with already about a dozen companies. Some of them are there, and with them, I've consulted to design VR and AR experiences. So fast forward from 2014, I get more skills in VR. I take a break from VR to focus on augmented reality with HoloLens headset, and then with Snapchat filters and Spark AR. But this is a project that really marks the start of VeoVeo. This is our game. This is a basketball game that we put as a test in one of the stadiums here in Puerto Rico, in the Vaqueros, in Bayamón. So in Bayamón, like we wanted to make a product for the basketball team, but as well as the marketing companies that set up booths. Our vision was that, imagine we have an entertainment for the clients, for the people while they're waiting for the game to get started. So this is how we started here we started here as our test trial. We want to make sure that the game worked well. We wanted to make sure that it was a fun experience. People lined up. We had hundreds of people trying the experience. And from there, we knew that we had something. So let me just quickly show you. Yeah, so this is, oops. Yeah, so this is how the experience looks like. Basically, it's a very simple basketball game, a shooter. You have about 1 minute to make the most amount of points possible, right? So this is a fun experience, but there's a lot of data analysis behind it. What we're doing is that we're putting ads inside of the basketball court. So the sponsor, basically, they hired us to create this experience for their booth. And this was a lot more effective than giving flyers or having a TV. So from there, we found our niche. We started creating a virtual reality for conferences and for events. So after that, we had the opportunity to start consulting with bigger companies. This time, instead of games, we
Pedro,
wanted to...
Sorry to interrupt you, Pedro. Perdona, pero
Yeah.
que tu pantalla no se ve, que no sé si lo estabas compartiendo, pero se cayó el sharing de la pantalla.
Okay, hold on. ¿Desde cuándo?
Desde cuando estabas presentando el juego y que estabas mostrando que sí, la línea del basketball y todo eso.
Okay.
Just
Gotcha.
in case, sorry to interrupt you, que I'm anxious.
No worries. Thank you for interrupting me. That's important. So can you see my screen now?
Yep, estoy aquí ahora mismo adding it. There you go.
All right, so sorry about that. Not sure what happened. I'm going to skip ahead because of time, but here is the next experience that we created with Liberty Business. So fast forward a few years, we're able to, let me go back a little bit. Yeah. So fast forward a few years, we're able to then hire a team, hire amazing artist, Joel Moran, to help us create characters. This is one of the concepts that we made, and we created interactive experiences that help educate clients, Liberty's clients, about their business. So imagine you're at Liberty Business has conferences, and they have trade shows. They want to have this experience. Like, you put on the headset and you're able to learn about each of their services. So here we created an interactive narrative where you're able to not only just learn about their services. Basically, the robot is telling you, hey, well, we have gigabit internet, we have fiber, we have security services. You learn it through a fun, engaging experience. So that really taught us a ton about the user experience and storytelling side of things. That upgraded our skills. And from there, we basically were able to move on to creating more complex platforms. So unfortunately, COVID happened. Unfortunately, COVID happened. And our niche was originally live events, trade shows, and conferences. You can imagine what happened to our business after COVID-19, as well as others around the world. But since we depended on that, that was our moment to pivot. We doubled down on our VR sports platform, and we were selected for the Oculus Launchpad. This is actually something that we're announcing today. We were selected for the Oculus Launchpad program. It's like a type of incubator for up-and-coming VR talent, as well as pre-18. So even though I didn't get into Parallel 18 back in the Generation 1, it really shows, if you do not give up, that you can really achieve your dreams and your goals. But at the same time, just remember that you can't fall in love with the solution that you created. I fell in love with virtual reality. I thought it could solve many of our society's issues. But if no one has a VR headset, then we're not going anywhere, right? So where are we going in regards to the future of VR? I think now, since we have a platform, right? We have Oculus, we have other players in the industry where you can have a VR headset for $300. The Oculus just launched the Quest 2. And the Quest 2 basically is a standalone headset. You don't have to have it connected to any computers, any phone. It's just a standalone headset, like if it was your phone. So because of COVID-19, there's going to be a massive increase of adoption. People are needing that connection again. For example, I'm a daily virtual reality user. I work out in VR. I play games in VR, but I also I'm able to see the news in VR, check my Facebook, check Instagram. The future of VR is going to, I see it's going to especially impact the following industries. VR for work. Imagine people meeting into their custom meeting room, a boardroom. Imagine a Coco House in virtual reality, a virtual reality Coco House where everyone could put on their headset and have that experience of co-working. As well as training. It's really tough to train people in the pandemic with all the social distancing rules, right? So because people cannot come together, there's a need for sports, for VR sports as well, for entertainment, but also concerts, theater. That's something that people would aggregate in masses that are not going to be available anymore because of the restriction. So virtual reality can offer an alternative to that. Imagine instead of going to a concert, you're able to put on a VR headset and experience it live across the world instantly with anyone. It will never, I don't think we are gonna get to the point where it's gonna replace going to a physical concert and visiting these places, but it offers people a chance, a different alternative, because people are tired of being at home. So I feel like it took 6 years for the technology to reach a point where it's accessible. Before, it used to cost about $2,000 when I started to get into VR. Now with $300, you have a headset. And then with with more and more companies adopting VR for productivity uses and training, I see that this is going to be the pivotal moment. Probably virtual reality, the VR headsets are going to compete against consoles like the PlayStation, but as well as devices like a tablet, because VR is it already has the software suite included. So moving on in the future, we're going to see custom experiences. I recently was invited to the Facebook Horizon platform. This is a virtual reality platform to experience different types of worlds, but also a creation platform. Instead of creating my experiences in a computer, how I do today, you could create everything inside of virtual reality. So this is the next level. It still hasn't not been released, but in the future, I foresee students will get their first programming experiences in this type of platform. In the future, I see that every single business, the same way that they have a website, they're going to have a virtual reality space inside of Horizon. So the same way that Facebook has pages and each business has a page, businesses are then going to have spaces or virtual offices where people can go and interact. That's the future we're going. So I recommend that if you're interested in building this future, that you learn these tools as soon as you can. Today, VR is clunky. Just imagine, think back on how the first cell phones were. You had to transport them in a briefcase, right? So 6 years ago, it was the same thing. I had my virtual reality briefcase all over. But now it's getting to the point where it's getting smaller and smaller. I still want to have a VR headset that's the size of goggles, right? Like this concept. And I think we'll get there in the next 4 to 5 years. But for now, I'm excited to work with the new headsets that are out there. So I have one right here. This is the Oculus Quest 2. It's smaller and lighter than the previous platforms. You don't really need a phone. You need a phone just to visualize the apps that you have, but it's self-powered and it's tiny. So in 5 years, my prediction is that this will be the size of goggles, the same way that we had Nokia cell phones, huge clunky devices, but indestructible, which is good. In the future, we'll have AR glasses that are stylish. So I look forward to not only seeing that future, but also building it. And now, if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the chat. I would love to hear and help anyone who's interested in designing for VR or even investing in virtual reality companies.
All right. Pedro, thank you very much for that talk. That was amazing. It's oftentimes the best way to teach is telling stories. And I think your story is one that definitely has a lot of learnings and a lot of great value to it. So thank you for sharing that. And now, so let's move on to the Q&A. If anybody has any questions, please write them down in the comments. We'll be looking at that section right now. I did have one question, Pedro, for you. And I know you've also been involved in AR, which is augmented reality. I just want to, I think I know it, but I'd love for you to say, what is the difference between AR and VR?
Yeah, sure. So virtual reality is completely immersive, right? Augmented reality is this, when you lay digital objects in the real scene. So augmented, we're basically, I have my reality, I'm laying digital objects. This is an example of a Snapchat filter. I can include, I can change an environment. This is using machine learning to detect my face and detect my body. I can do a lot of fun stuff inside of augmented reality. I could even turn into a potato.
Awesome.
So yeah, so basically, I feel like augmented reality is many times a lot more accessible because most people have phones. But it's going to take another generation, right? More time to people to buy this. You know, I feel like probably in the next 5 years, everyone will have a headset.
So you feel like virtual reality will grow quicker than augmented reality at first?
So the depends on the type of augmented reality, right? The reality spectrum, basically on this side we have what they call real reality, right? Our physical reality.
Yeah, got it.
Yeah, and then on this side we have the virtual reality, right? Snapchat filters, they're kind of like if this is reality. Snapchat filters are like kind of like here, right? What is around here is called mixed reality, and I wish I had a lot more time to discuss what is the differences. But mixed reality is the ability to understand your environment. Okay, so by understanding your environment, what I'm saying is that your phone or with glasses, your glasses. Imagine one day you wake up, put on your AR glasses, and the AR glasses recognizes your hands, so you can interact with objects in your glasses. It can also recognize when you come into a room, a specific room, let's just say your bedroom, and it will recognize your bed, your walls. And let's just say instead of, I'm personally a minimalist. I don't like a lot of art on my walls, but imagine if I could just use, when I put on my AR glasses and I want to feel calm and I want to remember about my family, I could put an AR content on my wall, and that will persist. That will stay there, and no one can see that, right? So I think augmented reality is, for me, has been the technology of daydreamers. When I was a kid, I was all the time daydreaming and sketching and thinking. So AR brings digital content into your real world. VR, completely immersive, and I think both are going to have their pace. But if I were to say which technology is here today, that's the cheapest and what everyone adopts is going to be VR. But VR and AR, I think, will eventually merge. You'll have both a VR headset and an AR headset in one. With the tap of with a button, you'll switch between a completely virtual environment or a real one. So it's going to be like a dial, basically.
Got it. Beautiful. Okay, so does anyone? I see one comment here, the smiley face with glasses. So we know that people here are using they're really motivated by this, inspired. This Mariangi, Marcel, Ochi have any question for Pedro?
Marcel, you're on mute. Oh,
Yeah,
no,
you're not on mute, but we can't hear you. Okay,
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Cool. I mean, this has been like a super cool presentation. I've learned a lot about VR and AR. Kind of wanted to know, like, more on a business side, like, what has been your process, like, dealing with the whole pandemic, and like, what are you looking to do? Like, what are your next steps?
Yeah, definitely. Great question. So from the business side of things, like I mentioned, unfortunately, our business was, our niche was events, live events, trade shows, conferences, and that really affected us. That made us pivot and double down on creating remote experiences. The future of VeoVeo is bringing sports into virtual reality, offering an alternative to them. Personally, like my sister, for example, she lives in North Dakota. She has a scholarship to play volleyball. And I was really sad to hear during the summer that they weren't going to play volleyball. And that is happening all around the world, where sports leagues are dying because it's just not safe and because of the mandates. So personally, what we're working on now, and what we pitched to in pre-18 and got selected, is creating a VR sports platform that will include games like basketball, baseball, golf, upcoming golf. And then imagine being able to do like an experience where we can all play together inside of the platform. So we're gonna be focusing on multiplayer sports games the next couple months.
All right, Great. Thank you for answering that, Pedro. We are at 6:59, so I want to be respectful of our time. There's one question, though, I want to get to real quick, which is how do you think, Pedro, that we could implement AR in Puerto Rico today to improve out the quality of life?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the best way that I recommend right now is going to be through art. Personally, I've collaborated with a lot of artists to create murals that come to life. And we also have created educational scavenger hunts as well. So with Oile, we created a scavenger hunt in their zip line, right? In their headquarters. And basically you would go around spot by spot around the park to learn more about the history. You'll be able to see their mascot. So I think that for AR to leave an impact, we need to create delightful experiences that are entertaining, that are fun. And then in the future, once we have better tools, then we can start thinking about productivity. What does it mean to have an AR headset for work, right? I don't think we're there yet. So if you're interested in impacting AR in Puerto Rico, I recommend do fun stuff, do educational stuff, and do stuff that are experimental. I started with experimental things, and I think that really pushes the needle forward in innovation and leaving impact on the island.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, thank you for answering that, Pedro. And it's truly been an honor to have you here for the second time now in Developer Circle. So we can say that you're a crowd favorite for sure. So thank you for being here, Pedro. Really, really appreciate it.
Awesome. So happy again to be here. And if anyone wants to connect with me, you can go to VeoVeo Studios in our social media, or connect with me personally by going to in social media, Instagram, Twitter, Pedro Cruz IO. Pedro Cruz IO.
All right, wonderful. So I guess we can leave you here in the closing. You're a second guest, so you have that VIP access. So I'll just do that. But personally, it's been really great today. I think we've learned a lot of things. I took notes on both of your talks. So Jennifer and Pedro, really, really good information. I do wanna specify that we'll continue to do this monthly. So we had a little break after the pandemic started. We were kind of figuring out how to reformat everything, but we are doing this now on a monthly basis again. So we're gonna be here doing this once a month at the end of the last week of the month. So we're looking forward to see you all here. Thank you for being here. And I don't want to end up before first saying that special thanks to Coco Haus for co-organizing this with Link Puerto Rico. From our side, Link Puerto Rico, our vision is to always look for ways to empower the community here of Puerto Rico and Latin America through education and technology. And Pedro knows this. Pedro is part of the co-founders of Link and part of our board too. So it's an honor to have you here, Pedro. Marianji and Marcel and Oshi, if you want to say something about Coco Haus, that would be a great chance.
Thank you. Am I on mute or no? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
So yeah, Coco Haus, as you all know, is a co-working space in Santurce. We're expanding in more ways than one. So we have a lot on our plate for the next few months, and it's very exciting. Even though we're in the middle of a pandemic, we keep growing. And we're opening a content studio in a few weeks. So be on the lookout for that. We're going to have a podcast room, a video room, audio recording room, and yeah, it's going to be really cool. So you just found out about that before anyone else.
Awesome.
Do you have a green screen though?
We will have a green screen. Yes.
Okay. I'm going to call you. Okay.
Exactly. We're going to have a party wall.
Beautiful,
yeah, no,
beautiful.
It's a full-on studio, and it's gonna be plug and play. It's gonna be fully equipped for people to just come in. You don't need your own equipment; it'll be fully equipped.
Beautiful. So you can follow Coco Haus in the links below on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You can also follow Link in the following social media: we're Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Link Puerto Rico as well. And I do want to make a quick announcement. Now that you made that announcement, Marianji, is that, and I don't think I've said this publicly on any of our lives, but we do have now an online academy for Link Puerto Rico. I'll be putting this now on the comments so you can go visit it. This online academy has courses on machine learning. We have courses on data science. We're going to soon be adding a lot more courses. We have courses on chatbots for Facebook. So please do check that out. It's in collaboration with IBM. And IBM developer advocates here in Puerto Rico. So which Pedro is also one of those. So thank you for that. And yeah, I think we're good for today. So thank you all for joining us today, and we'll see you next month.
Save the date for our next developer circle, which is Tuesday before Thanksgiving, right? The 20.
Tuesday, I believe it's 24th, November 24th.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we're switching it to Tuesday, but mark your dates, save the date.
All right.
Mark your calendar.
Mark your calendars. All right. Well, take care, everyone. Thank you for being here.
Bye.